I call to order the August 2015 legislative session of the Media Borough Council. I ask that you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. We have a nearly full house today. We try to get through our agenda as expeditiously as we can. We have a few housekeeping items to go through first. We have workshop meeting, we have meeting minutes, workshop, public hearing, and council meeting minutes. The first set is from July 9, 2015. That was our workshop meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve them as submitted?
So moved.
Second. And there is a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes for the July workshop as submitted, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. The motion passes. Next, we have public hearing minutes from July 16, and this was in connection with the comprehensive plan which we adopted last month. Do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes as submitted?
Second.
Any questions on or call for amendment of the meeting minutes?
Very detailed minutes. We appreciate that. No, that's right.
Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes as submitted, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. The motion passes. And then finally, we have our council meeting minutes for the July 2015 legislative meeting. Is there a motion to approve them as submitted?
So moved.
Second. Any call for discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the July 16, 2015 council meeting minutes as submitted, please say aye. Aye. The motion passes. All right, so we are now through housekeeping. We have public comment and privilege of the floor. I'm going to do something that I normally don't do. I'm going to call on somebody and ask her to come to the microphone. Maurice Chiquetti, please come to the microphone. And I have a question for you. You know what it is?
What's the hole in the ground?
What's the hole in the ground at Jackson and Front? What happened to our library?
Our library, as we knew it, is gone. It served us well for 60 years, as you know, and now we're making way for the new library. It's beautifully designed, and we're looking forward to it. Our construction schedule now is about 270 days. That brings us to the end of April. By the time we pack up and get into the new library, it'll be somewhere around our 115th anniversary, which is July of 2016. So it's a great opportunity for us to come out and celebrate. Where are we as of today? We're about 80% demolished, about 80%, and starting next week we'll actually be doing the excavation, and we'll just keep moving until the new library is built. So far so good. SB Conrad is our general contractor out of Glen Mills, so he's a local contractor, I think well known and well respected. So we're really moving very well and working well with them. Before we go further with the new building, I wanted just to mention too that the temporary library is open. We all know this now. On the second floor of the firehouse, we opened on July 27th to, quite frankly, rave reviews. It's beautifully designed, it's open, high ceilings, beautiful light. The ramp is in, the railings are up. We've had, I guess, several thousand visits already, so it's really going well. I was in yesterday and 22 kids were there singing. It was just like we had never left, we didn't lose any stride at all. Our staff has remained with us. We have everybody on board. Our new director did a beautiful job, I have to say, getting us in. It took about 4 weeks, but we're in, and we have about 50% of our collection, every computer, so look for our hours to be the same as they've always been. Our staff you'll recognize as the folks you've always seen, and that'll be our home. Some folks actually said to me, I had a furniture rep who sells all through the state of Pennsylvania, and he came in last week and he said, this is better than many of the libraries he's seen that have full-time locations in some of the lesser funded communities in the state. So he was super impressed by it, and made us feel really good about all the work we put in. We had carpet donated, we had Home Depots on board, discounted for us some of the supplies and materials we needed, and the flagpole is relocated. It's just looking great. The firehouse has been very cooperative, and I think we have a great alliance here I'm looking forward to into the future as well. So thirdly, I wanted to mention that our fundraising plan is going as expected, and that's happening on multiple fronts. In fact, Carol Carr's with me tonight. Carol is our capital campaign administrator. And we have a team that's been in place for about 3 years. We started out with a capital campaign consultant. She sort of got us started and structured, and now we've been moving And we have a team that meets weekly, and we have a number of campaigns moving within our major campaign. And they are grant writing, of course, as you know. We have the Keystone Grant we've been awarded, and actually we can actually start making submissions this month on those. And Ethel Sergeant Clark Smith grant has been awarded to us, and our second round will be submitted in September. We have the RACI grant, the Redevelopment Authority grant, that's been submitted back in February. And on September 2nd, we have a site visit scheduled with one of the members who will sit at that table. So we'll invite everybody to come out and support us on September 2nd at noon, as members who will be sitting at the table judging our application are coming for a site visit, so that's great news. In addition, we have a Plaques for Stacks campaign. I know some folks in this room have already bought their plaque, and their name will be shown prominently on a stack, which is a shelving unit in the library. We have the Media Rotary Club, who has been an unbelievable friend to us. They made a pledge to us last year for about $100,000. Larry Smooths, the current president, has been working with us and been at our meetings regularly. They've kicked the program off. Their 40 active members are working hard for us. So it's a beautiful alliance, and we're very grateful. And lastly, we have something that will be starting next year, or the next month actually, is the brick campaign. So for those of you who want to memorialize your friends and family, we'll have the new patio on the corner of Front and Jackson. We'll have bricks where you can have your names engraved. And I'm missing one thing. Casino night, yes, our special events. As you know, in the spring we had our first ever prom. It was a great success. I think we had a lot of fun. We raised some money. September 26th, if you're not visiting the Pope, we have casino night happening it happens to be the same exact night at the Concordville Inn. We have a great opportunity to have a gathering there. And we're looking forward to having that be an annual event as well. So September 26th, casino night. Next spring, look for our prom. In fact, the Rotary is also going to have an event on April 22nd, and it's going to be a wine tasting event. So we have a number of things lined up, and everybody's working really hard towards raising the funds we need to complete the project.
Thank you, Marie. So in short, the library building might be gone, but the library operations continue as they always have in the firehouse across the street.
Same hours, same staff.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming.
Let me just quickly extend a thank you to you, Marie. I know that you are managing the construction full-time, and I just want to thank you on behalf of all the residents and media for all the hard work you really put into this, as well as the board. But I know that you, in particular, have really dedicated a lot of your time to it. And I personally thank you, and I know media residents will thank you when it's done.
Thank you.
All right. If anyone else wishes to address council at this time, please come forward, come to the microphone, identify yourself by name and by where you live.
Letitia Jevons, 216 North Monroe Street. My question is pedestrians. I've noticed it seems to be a particular problem around on the Jackson Street crosswalks, but I've seen signage elsewhere, I think maybe in Philadelphia, about blocking the box, which I think may refer to what this pet peeve is. And the question is, when people stop at the red light, sometimes instead of stopping behind the crosswalk so that the pedestrians can cross, they stop right in the middle, parked in the crosswalk, particularly at Jackson and Baltimore Avenue. Sometimes they do it because they seem to have a turn signal on some of the smaller streets, but it also makes it harder for pedestrians to cross. But if they're not immediately turning, it tends to make life more difficult for the pedestrians without necessarily. Has there been any enforcement or signs about stopping before the crosswalk rather than parking your car in the crosswalk at a red light?
I can't speak to enforcement, but we have been discussing some signs that could be put along Baltimore Avenue with regard to pedestrian safety, not specifically as to stopping in the crosswalks. It's not something that we've looked into. I don't know if it's feasible. Be happy to ask the engineer for his thoughts, and if he can collect them for our workshop meeting, we can discuss them at that time. So the question is whether or not it makes sense to do some type of block-the-box type striping at certain intersections. Do you think that will help enhance pedestrian safety?
I will ask, we're almost done the first request about how pedestrians cross on the side streets through the traffic signal. I'll go back and ask about this and the other item about also pedestrian crossing down at the West End Estate in Baltimore is almost complete also.
Okay, so we'll look forward to your report the first Thursday in September.
I should have some information provided to Mr. Smith before then, so you can be prepared. I can be prepared for questions from council.
Good. And also perhaps from Ms. Jevons. So Letitia, if you're there, I think it's September 3. Could be wrong. First Thursday in September?
It's the 3rd.
The 3rd? Okay. We might have some answers to those questions at that time. But thank you for bringing that to our attention. Does anyone else wish to address council at this time? If so, please come forward, identify yourself by name and where you live.
Good evening, may it please council. My name is James Halligan. I'm here as an attorney. My certificate number is 88865 on behalf of Ms. Kathy Hill. She lives at 519, I'm sorry, I apologize, 319 West 4th Street. Actually, my residence is at 519 North Jackson Street, and my law office is at 201 North Jackson Street. We are here just for public comment this evening. We know that the council addressed us at the workshop. I wasn't able to attend at the time, and I apologize. I was at Nether Providence. I had a prior commitment at Nether Providence Township that evening. But believe in your community development section, President Hall will present to you the application that we are putting forth before the zoning hearing board on the 27th, which is next Thursday. We presented this to the Planning Commission. We are applying for a special exception for 319 West 4th Street. The proposed development is additional square footage built to the second floor of Ms. Hill's home in the rear, over top an existing first floor and rear patio area. There will be a second floor deck proposed that will extend over the existing rear patio, and we are proposing that the impervious surface will actually diminish. When we were at the Planning Commission, I actually stated at that time that Planning Commission, I indicated to the Planning Commission itself that the impervious surface as it stands right now for Ms. Hill's property is at 42%, and in the R2 district in which she lives, it is required to be 30%. At the time of the Planning Commission, I indicated we were going down to 39%, but Mr. Lynn, who was nice enough to speak with me afterwards, and I relooked at the zoning code under section 3112 or 112, the impervious surface does not include sidewalks. So we did a recalculation, and as it stands right now, according to my calculations, again, I'm an attorney, not an architect or an engineer, but the impervious surface presently is 38% when you take out those sidewalks as required by the code. And then with this addition and the construction, we anticipate that the impervious surface will be down to 31%, so within 1% of the code. It's our position that Ms. Hill is entitled to a special exception for this enlargement of her property because it's a pre-existing non-conforming use. Her property predates the zoning code. So we actually do have 2 letters that I indicated to the Planning Commission that we would have. I have them this evening if the council requires copies. I'm going to present them next week at the zoning hearing board meeting when we present our evidence. But we're just asking that the council either take no opposition to this plan or application, I should say, no opposition, or take no position at all. We don't believe it's going to detrimentally impact the community and the surrounding. My understanding is from actually 2 different residents that had the same type of improvements that have occurred within the last few years after talking to Mr. Jeffries, the code enforcement director. So if you have any questions this evening for Ms. Hill or myself, we'll attempt to answer them for you, but we'll present our case next week. But again, we're just asking the council to either take no position or not to be opposed to this application.
Mr. Halligan, if I understand the application, there are 2 aspects of the non-conforming, the existing non-conforming use. One is the overall coverage, and the other is the side yard setbacks.
Correct.
Okay, got
Yes.
it. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to address council? Please come to the microphone. Identify yourself by name and by where you live.
Good evening, my name is Stuart Rose, and I'm an adjacent property owner to the West End Flat project. I reside in Middletown now.
You live down the hill a bit.
I live down the hill a bit, but I own a property on 4 West End Avenue that is to the back of the West End Flat property.
The microphone is
To the
portable.
West End Walk property.
To the West End Wall property, yes.
So it's
The
the
north side.
So the house is, the property is here. And they're going to dig this out for a turnaround, which is fine. I don't see any problem with any of that. I would, however, it's probably only about 15 feet off the property line and it's going to be excavated. There is currently a fence line along here and a 3-foot cyclone fence, I believe, which is kind of old and dilapidated. They indicated that they may leave that. I, however, highly doubt that they're going to leave an old dilapidated fence 15 feet off these people's properties that are 400,000 plus, and I suspect that that fence will go away. However, they did indicate that they thought they might leave it. But what I'd like this township to do is compel them to, to put a fence along there, at least along my property line, so that I don't have people coming through my property to the park, and or this is a rental property. There's children that live there, little kids, have the chance of falling into that turnaround area.
All right, Mr. Rose, I think that Mr. Lynn, if he's prepared to do so, he can address that once he does his presentation for the projects, which will be in a few minutes.
Yeah, we ain't no problem with that, that's fine.
Okay.
So the preliminary word is that there's no problem doing that.
Yeah, that's fine. And then secondly, I have 3 comments. One is maybe we could compel this neighbor to clean up the one place on Baltimore Pike.
Well, unfortunately, we cannot, since I don't believe that they are in
Oh,
media.
I think they are.
Are they?
The 2 twin houses? The very last one?
The applicant's actually purchasing the one twin of these.
Yes, I'd do that. The one next to that, maybe they could clean up on the walkway. The owner, the land, and that's a hazard for people walking to the Sterling Pig or walking up that way, whatever. And then the other thing I would like to see the developer do is phase 1 and phase 2 testing along this back property line. The old shop here. This was my family's home, so I lived and grew up there. The current garage that was all there had been a body shop, a machine shop, a lot of antifreeze, oils, cleaning solvents just got dumped over the bank there. And Lord knows what else, because it's all along this area here is a dump. And then additionally, through here, this used to be the old media dry cleaners. So this is all a dump back and along here as well. And, everything got dumped over there. There's safes back there. I don't know if there's dry cleaning chemicals. So I think it would be prudent to at least have phase 1 and phase 2 done, because you're going to have little kids running around in these yards and Lord knows what's in there.
It's been done, 1 and 2 have been completed by the public.
That's fine. I just don't,
I think that Mr. Lynn, if you don't mind, if you could address that in your comments on the project.
Certainly, happy.
Thank you.
And I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Appreciate it.
Can you just tell us the address of your property?
4 West End Avenue.
That's Upper Providence, correct?
That is Upper Providence, yes.
Okay.
But it does abut the back of the property.
Contiguous, right?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to address council at this time? There being no takers, we will move on to the engineer's report. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you and good evening. I'll give you a brief summary of the work completed for July 2015. The 2015 road resurfacing project was started and completed. Excuse me. Attended a pre-construction meeting for the Jefferson Street sidewalks, which are now under construction. Good amount of the sidewalk is completed and the curbing is completed. We assisted the borough for preparing automated red light enforcement documents for a PennDOT grant. We also attended a meeting for the Veterans Square design with the RDA group. We received, returned, and commented on the West End Walk and the West End Flats, and close out paperwork for Hoopin Park. And that's a summary of the activities for July.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any questions for our engineer? Hearing none, we'll turn to our solicitor, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will report tonight.
Are there any questions for Mr. Scott? Hearing none, we'll move on to the mayor.
Thank you. I have 3 proclamations tonight, and Vicky Atmani is here, so I'm going to do her proclamation first, and then I will come back and read the other 2. Vicky, if you can join me. I'm going to give off-the-cuff remarks first, so this may not go well. As most people know, I was a coach for female sports, my daughter and Pencrest for many years, so I have a great interest in female athletes. And one part of this proclamation at the end where I say, be an inspiration for anyone that has had a goal that seemed out of reach. This is really a goal. And Vicky's been on State Street. I don't know if you saw the picture of her with the police officers, but she lives in the 19063. That may be Median and it may be Upper Providence. I never really looked at the map. So I invited Vicky to come tonight, and the proclamation says the following. Whereas Amelia Borough acknowledges Vicky Atmani and Megan Bigging, 2 young ladies from the Philadelphia area, will be attempting to do something that has never been done by 2 women. Row across the Pacific Ocean from Monterey, California to Honolulu, Hawaii. The nearly 3,000-mile trip will take approximately 2 months to complete and will be done entirely unassisted. No boat following behind, no stops, no food drops. Everything they need, they will take with them. Whereas in doing this, they will be the first North American pair to complete this, as well as the fastest crossing by a 2-person crew. They are attempting the expedition in order to raise awareness for the problem of ocean pollution, as well as aid cleanup by donating $100,000 to the Ocean Conservancy. Whereas in June 2016, Vicky and Megan embarked on their journey, they hope to the following: make history by being the first female pair to row across the Pacific Ocean, show humans can enjoy our natural resources with 0 negative impact, generate funding for the Ocean Conservancy to aid their current and future cleanup efforts, be an inspiration for anybody that has had a goal that seemed out of reach, bring to the spotlight exactly what our human impact on the ocean looks like, challenge our bodies, minds, and spirits beyond what we can imagine, do greater things than themselves. So, therefore, be it resolved, the Borough Media hereby acknowledges Vicky Atmani and Megan Bigging for their efforts to raise awareness and fight to save oceans. So Vicky, thank you for being here tonight. This is the proclamation, and I asked Vicky to say a few words, if that's okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council members and people here for listening tonight. I really appreciate this opportunity. You know, when I first started with the thought of this goal, it wasn't to make it something big and to make it something that required, I guess, some note of celebrity. What I initially wanted to do was to not only achieve this goal and everything that Mayor Bob announced, but a big important part of this is the inspiration of other people. Cleaning up the ocean is incredibly important to us. That's why we're doing this. I love rowing. Megan and I both love rowing. We grew up rowing, and we want to challenge ourselves, and that's fantastic too. But one of the biggest influencing factors in my life and making me who I am today was the fact that my mom, anytime I came to her and said, I want to try karate, or I want to be a tennis player, or I want to be a NASCAR driver, she's like, awesome, go for it, do it, you can totally do it. And having her support was huge in shaping who I am and who I became. And working in the fitness industry, I deal with a lot of kids and a lot of parents who don't know how to treat their child athletes and what to do with them, and other than just throwing them into sports. So doing this as an opportunity to be able to inspire young women that maybe want to do something that they aren't sure if they can do, or that they've seen on TV only be done by boys before, or something that's even never been done by any human being. It's just, in addition to young women, I just want to inspire young athletes and people in general to take risks and to do things bigger than themselves, because it's totally possible. So thank you very much for this. I appreciate it.
Can we follow your progress?
Yes, you can.
How do we follow your progress as you're rowing from the west coast to the white?
I'm going to have a little tracking beacon on the boat, and on our website, fightthekraken.org, there'll be a link to another website called Yellow Brick that will pull up a map, and you can just see our dot moving across the ocean. So, yeah, we'll be leaving beginning of June next summer from Monterey.
So you have a choice, either a plaque or a half gallon of water. Which one are you bringing on board?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with the water. Although the pot could be good shape too.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Vicki and I have 2 more resolutions to read, but you do not have to remain here and not only listen to resolutions, but my long report. So feel free, if you'd like to leave at any point, stay and listen, or you can
Thank you. I've got to get up at
gracefully leave without anybody noticing.
I've got a 4 a.m. meeting tomorrow,
Okay.
so
Thank you for coming.
meeting with the rowing machine.
Have a good evening. Good night.
Thank you, Council members.
Good luck.
Thank you.
The second proclamation, I just said wow. Okay. Second proclamation is to honor Doreen Jones. She's the pastor of Abounding Grace Family Workshop Center. And it says, whereas Pastor Jones' ministry is dedicated to impacting the lives of men and women so that they will fulfill their potential, and whereas Pastor Jones is celebrating 30 years in ministry on September 27th, I'll be getting to September 27th in a minute, 2015, and therefore be it resolved, Media Borough recognizes Pastor Jones on her milestone anniversary and many achievements. So this will be passed on to Pastor Jones. The third proclamation reads as follows. Whereas Media Borough will acknowledge 2015 as a crucial year in the international community, will set itself important objectives in terms of poverty reduction and environmental commitments, and a new integrated sustainable development framework to replace the current Millennium Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, are: believe international trade rules should be reformed to be more equitable and participatory, so that all actors impacted, especially poor farmers and workers across developing countries, are able to decide on the basis of the impacts that trade deals and other decisions will have on them. Acknowledge that climate change is a major challenge to humanity, in particular for farmers and workers whose livelihoods and ability to plan ahead are affected by climate change. In context, fair trade plays a key role in supporting farmers to adapt and mitigate against the negative consequences of climate change, such as droughts or pests. Calling national governments, the EU, and the United Nations to use the adoption of the SDGs to place sustainable development at the heart of all areas of government policy, from agriculture to trade, to ensure that different government policies are joined up and act as tools, not obstacles, to achieving sustainable development objectives, and to unlock full potential of the cities and regions to support fair trade, to deliver SDGs through initiatives such as the European Fair Trade Capital Award, to further encourage cities in the field. Be it now resolved, the Borough Media hereby acknowledges the sustainable goals of fair trade. And Amy, I think 10 years ago this was started in Media, the first fair trade town in the United States. So, do you mind if I give this to you and you will pass it on? Thank you. Now, my report. We had a total of 727 complaints during the month of July. On the 27th of July, a resident of the 300 block of Manchester reported to burglary at his apartment after being home for several weeks. And during his absence, someone entered the apartment with presumably a key and broke into a small safe that was empty. Nothing else was disturbed, and nothing was reported stolen. All investigations are continuing. The Inside Out exhibit of Picasso was reported stolen from the Post Elementary School grounds at State and Monroe. An excellent investigation, that's my words too, by a number of officers led to the recovery of the art as well as the arrest of a 22-year-old Wallingford man. That certainly got a lot of publicity, by the way. On the 27th of July, an armed robbery occurred at Citizens Bank located at Baltimore and Jackson. Says investigation continues, but we have it. So we got that kind. Now a couple other reports. Papal visit. I've got all sorts of notes on the papal visit, but what I can tell you, and Heather and I and Zubair and all discussed this beforehand, our goals are really to make this a good experience for not only the visitors that come to media that day, but to make sure the businesses are open and being able to operate. It's also the opening weekend for the theater's series this year. So there is, from what I can tell, amongst police department, media, Upper Providence, the county, World Meeting of Families, Archdiocese, and all media borough, there's really a collaborative effort to make this work. It'll be September 26th and 27th. There are approximately 10,500 people that will be taking the train from media. There have been two meetings in the last 2 days to go over how we're going to handle it. So I'm going to stay in direct contact with Heather, Brian, Zubair, and everybody else, so the Media Business Authority is fully informed of the challenges that we have and how we're handling those challenges and have input. And we'll also keep in touch through Jeff, Paul, and Brian and all about how we're progressing on making this all work. We're the most challenged. Of the 18 hubs, we're challenged because we have a town that is open for business on weekends. And this is a key weekend for businesses. So we're doing our best to get this right. I know I'm saying a lot of superlatives, but I'm very impressed with all that's happening. And Paul, I know you have a declaration tonight of emergency, which is going to allow us to get reimbursed for money that we're going to be putting out. I don't think I really should tell you all the parking spots that we've secured tonight. I don't think I'm going to run down that. But we got a lot of people that are cooperating with us to make sure there's remote parking and a way to get people to the train station. So Heather, have I covered enough for now? And if I'm not in touch with you, you're going to be in touch with me, aren't you? Or at least Drew will. Okay. Dining on the Stars, I think the 11 o'clock closing is working out a lot better. The officers are now staying till 11. There's communication among the restaurants, new ways. We know that we have a problem sometimes with children straying off, and with 5,000 diners, that's sometimes going to happen. So we're developing additional communication systems so that restaurants can interact with each other when such an event occurs. Also, they're embarking on CPR training next week. I know there's 12 to 15 participants that are going to be trained. So that's Dining Under the Stars and events. And if I forgot something, I'm sure no one's going to remind me because this is one of my longer reports. 911. Thank you. Please do not hesitate to call 911. Please lock your doors. I didn't always used to do that, but I do now. So please lock your doors. If you see anything, call 911 and not our cell phones. So, all right. And I say not our cell phones because when we had a lost child last year, I found out by someone calling my cell phone. The person that saw the child, or knew that the child was missing. So dial 911. I think that is my report.
All right, with that thought, does anyone have any questions for the mayor? Hearing none, we'll move to council committee reports. We will go from my right to my left. Councilman Boyer. He is Recreation and Board of Health.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few things from the Rec Board. Some old business, there was a minor issue with some damage to Borough Field by one of the softball teams. They've been informed as such, and we're very apologetic, so that's been resolved. Currently, the children's tennis camp is running. That began this past Monday. That will run through the end of August, and from what I saw on the field together, or the court the other day, it's pretty well attended, so that seems to be going well. An upcoming event through Rec is a cardio tap fitness program. Potentially will be run on Tuesdays at 7:30. You can check the website or contact Paula at the Borough to see when that will actually be up and running. That's something the board is discussing right now. And as always, if you're interested in rec events, you can check the board out at 4th and Monroe or contact Paula through the rec commission or go to the website. And there's nothing new from Board of Health, so that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilman Boyer. Does anyone have any questions for Councilman Boyer? Hearing none, we'll move on to Councilwoman Lisa Johnson, Art, MBA, and Historic.
Thank you. I have nothing to report.
All right, we are getting ahead of steam this evening. Does anyone have any questions for Councilwoman Lisa Johnson? Hearing none, we'll move on to Vice President Robinson. He does have a few things to report
I'm
on.
going to go as quickly as I can. As I do every month, I want to ask the residents and surrounding residents of Media Borough, anybody who would be interested in serving on the Media Fire Company, to contact them. They're always looking for firefighters and or even administrative volunteers. In the month of July, there were 41 runs, 19 in media, 22 mutual aids, and they had 7 drills. Also, which doesn't happen that often, is we actually had 3 significant fires this month. One in a home, one at Iron Hill that could have been a very, very serious to our downtown, and actually one at our library as part of the taking of certain parts of the library with a blowtorch. These things will happen. But I think it's a reminder to all of us how important our volunteer fire company is and how important it is we recognize their efforts. And when they send those little packs out in the mail looking for contributions, I would hope all of us would recognize their services and contribute. Going into the legislative part of my agenda, which I will make very short, is there is an amendment to the Christmas parade. And the only thing they are really looking to ask is a change of time to 2 o'clock for closures only from Orange Street to Vet Square on State Street, and from Orange Street to Vet Square on Front Street. And so that would be an amendment to their original mass gathering permit. This is just the amendment itself, so I don't have the original date. So I would make that in the form of a motion.
Second. Motion is made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? You have a quick question?
Sure.
Any word about whether or not they're willing to start and end the race on State Street versus on Front Street?
We'll ask again. I do apologize. I was supposed to go to the meeting, got stuck out of town with business. I'll touch base with her on that.
All right, any other questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the amended mass gathering permit for the Christmas parade and fun walk, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes.
And since we're in a condensed version tonight, I'm not going to read this whole resolution. This is resolution 2015-13. Basically, it's required by law that we pass resolutions to get rid of old equipment. These went out for bid last month, and I was somewhat surprised that we received a high bid for a 2001 Chevy 2500 HD of $3,000. And for our 2004 F550, we received a high bid of $12,100. So I'd make that in the form of a motion.
Second. Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no call. All those in favor of approving resolution 2015-13 with regard to bid awards for the municipal vehicle auction as outlined by Vice President Robinson, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay.
All the very interesting resolutions this evening. The next one I have is resolution 2015-14. Won't get into all of this as well, but under a Pennsylvania Act 428 of 1968, we have to pass a resolution to get rid of old paperwork as well. It's our state government at the time. So we're required to pass a resolution getting rid of old paperwork. Some of that paperwork is, if I can turn the page, financial records, bank statements, deposit slips prior to 2013, daily cash records prior to 2013, voucher bills, invoices, canceled checks, purchase orders prior to 2009, correspondence, routine administrative correspondence prior to 2007, and tax bills prior to 2014. That's in the form of a motion.
Second.
Motion is made and has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
I just have a curiosity question. Who decides the retention period?
The state of Pennsylvania.
There's a manual that the State Museum of Historic Commission publishes that has retention periods for different classes of records.
Okay, thank you.
There are a lot of local municipalities that are trying to say that, if we digitize, why do we need to keep this up? Because, we're not that large of a municipality. We have to have a fair amount of storage. There are municipalities out there that are paying a significant amount of money to store paperwork that no one ever looks at again. So we're hoping that someday we will get into the proper century. Last on my agenda is Resolution 24.
Oh, we didn't
I'm
get
sorry.
started on it yet.
I thought we got it. You're right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so there's been a motion made, it's been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving Resolution 2015-14 with regard to disposition of paper records, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes.
And as the mayor already indicated, tonight, we hope we'll be passing Resolution 2015-15, declaring a state of emergency for the papal visit through the days of September 24th through September 27th. Really what this allows the borough to do, if need be, is to apply for state and federal funds if need be. And I'm assuming that under the state of emergency, that there are other areas that, if we're required to, we would be able to move forward on. Such things as, the mayor and I have spoken about it, and it comes to what the mayor had said earlier. We're doing everything that we can do to make this a pleasant trip for people coming to media who will be going to visit the mayor. But, excuse me, Mayor, the Pope. You know what, Bob, it's very similar. But I want to sit there and say that, our number one concern has to be our residents and our businesses. We do need to be prepared to take whatever action, if in fact that there is people coming in, parking, and leaving for 15, 16 hours at a time, that we may have to take other measures to make sure that our streets are available for our businesses as well as our residents. But hopefully we won't go down that. So I make a motion we approve Resolution 2015-15.
-15. All right, the motion is made. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no call for discussion. All those in favor of approving Resolution 2015-15 with regard to the state of emergency declaration in connection with the papal visit, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes.
Concludes my report.
Any questions for Vice President Robinson? Hearing none, we'll move to Community Development Personnel and Media Arts Council. Take a few things out of order here. I'll take number 4 first. This is the zoning hearing board application for 319 West 4th Street. The issue here is whether or not we find this application to be so offensive to the public health, welfare, and safety that we ask our solicitor to attend the hearing before the zoning hearing board, in which the applicant will make their arguments for a special exception to the zoning code. What's involved here, as Mr. Halligan, who is the applicant's attorney, ably pointed out, is a residence that does not currently conform with our zoning code. I'd say that the large majority of our residences in media do not conform with our zoning code for the simple reason that our zoning code was adopted in the late 1980s. And most of what we have here was already here by the late 1980s. So a lot of houses, including my own, do not comply with certain requirements of the zoning code. The issue here is that the amount of impervious coverage of what's being proposed will exceed what is permitted under our zoning code. And the side yard setback will not be met by the resulting structure. The interesting thing here is that what is being proposed actually will lessen the amount of impervious coverage and will actually lessen the side yard setback nonconformity. So those things are good things. So you're actually lessening the footprint of the structure that's currently on the property. And this is in keeping with other residences in that neighborhood, a development in the neighborhood. So it was the judgment of our planning commission that the application does not so offend public health, safety, and welfare that the borough send its solicitor to the zoning hearing board to challenge the special exception application. And I believe that that is the correct recommendation to make. So I am not going to make a motion tonight. We have a 5-second rule. If anyone on council wishes to make a motion, they may do so. Otherwise, we will not be sending our solicitor to the zoning hearing board hearing next week. There we go, 5 seconds. All right, so go gently into that good night. Good luck next week. Judy Fowler, I'm going to single you out just to get that startled look on your face. This is with regard to number 5. It's a license agreement that the Media Arts Council is applying for with regard to a sculpture. The Media Arts Council is proposing a piece of public art on the Plum Street Mall. Now, this is that segment of the Plum Street Mall between Jasper and Front Street. So if you're familiar with that area, if you're standing at the front door of Seven Stones and you're looking at the building itself and you look over to your right, that's the area of Plum Street Mall we're talking about, in between the little alleyway there and Front Street. The Media Arts Council would like to install a sculpture along that segment of Plum Street Mall. I have a really bad black and white photo.
Don't even share that.
It's actually kind of cool to show.
On television.
You got a better one, Judy?
Yeah, I have a color one.
Because this one looks like there's smoke coming out of Bob Reed's head.
Which couldn't be possible.
He wants this?
There you go.
Stay where you are.
Really doing a close-up of your face. That's perfect. All the media sees it.
Okay.
That's fine. So that's what's being proposed to be put on Plum Street Mall. Plum Street Mall is a public right-of-way. It used to be a public thoroughfare for vehicles. It no longer is. It's a pedestrian right-of-way. And because it's owned by the borough, any structure that occupies that space needs a license to be there. You can't just willy-nilly put things on borough property. That would not be a good outcome. So the Media Arts Council is proposing that we enter into a license agreement such that they are able to place this work on the Plum Street Mall. According to that license agreement, among other things, they will indemnify the borough for any injury or damage that is done. And I understand that the Media Arts Council is going to pay for a structural engineer to make sure that the sculpture will rest solidly at that location.
Correct.
License agreement is something, it's fairly common for the borough. We have license agreements for, and I don't mean to compare art to dumpsters, but we have license agreements for dumpsters and other things as well, if they're in the right of way. So it's a fairly common thing that Media Arts Council is asking to do. So this evening, it's not permanent. This is, the license agreement is for 1 year, it's renewable. As I understand it, this is a piece that is being rented by the Media Arts Council for the term of 18 months. Do I have that right? Okay. Is that with an option to renew?
Probably.
Probably.
Not
Okay.
that far.
But to answer your question, Sarah, it is a 1 year license that is revocable at any time by the Borough Media. So tonight I'm going to make the motion that we enter into the license agreement with the Media Arts Council with regard to the structure on North Plum Street.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to enter into a license agreement with Media Arts Council pursuant to the requirements of the structural engineer and liability for a one-year contract that can be renewed, I'm assuming?
It can be.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Wait, you just said 1 year, but
Well, it can be renewed. He just said, what?
Yes, it's for 1 year, but it can be renewed.
we would renew it before the period was up so that we could keep it.
And they would renew it with us. It's not unilateral. We have to say yes.
Yeah. Motion is made and seconded. There's been discussion. All those in favor of entering into the license agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, well, the going is good, Judy. Last thing that I'll call before we get to, characterized as the main course on my part of the agenda, is ordinance number 1117. This is with regard to amending our floodplain ordinance. This is a housekeeping matter. We're required to do it, otherwise bad things happen to us. Is that correct, Mr. Scott?
Yeah, your borough residents who are required to have flood insurance by their mortgage company would not be able to get that flood insurance if you do not adopt this ordinance. Bring your ordinance into the compliance with the updated requirements of FEMA. They do this every few years. They go out and update their model ordinance and from on high, bring it down and tell us to adopt it.
All right, so this is a housekeeping matter, but it does have some real-world implications for those folks who need
Which is a
flood insurance.
small pool of residents, and I understand there's not much floodplain in the borough.
But they will be unhappy if they have to live in trailers.
Correct.
All right, so I make the motion that we approve ordinance number 1117. This updates our floodplain ordinance to reflect the requirements, the current requirements of FEMA.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of adopting ordinance 1117, amending Borough Media's floodplain ordinance, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
All right, the final two items are related. There are a pair of projects that I think really address the same area of town. They are both preliminary subdivision and land development applications. They are both for the west end of town. One is at the site of the old scuba shop, which is on the north side of Baltimore Avenue as you're heading out of town downhill. The other is for the south side of West Baltimore Avenue, where the Best Produce currently is, Spanky and Frankie's auto dealership. The first of the two is known as West End Flats. It is, I believe, 23 townhomes. Do I have that right, Mr. Lynn?
23 plus 3 other structures, 26
Okay.
dwellings.
All right. That's wall. Oh, I'm sorry. I got, yeah, that's right. That's West End
The
Walk.
apartments.
The flats is a development with 161 apartment units. That's on the south side of the street.
162, correct.
Okay, well, it says 161 is something I read, but we can quibble. Both these projects have been with us for about a year now through work on our zoning code to create gateway districts, to meetings with residents, to planning commission discussion about these projects. I think that for the flats, there were three nights of discussion, and for the walk, I think it was 2 nights of discussion, but a substantial amount of time for both of the projects. Tonight is the night where we make a decision as to whether or not to approve the preliminary subdivision and land development applications for both. Even though it's preliminary, this is a big deal. If you can liken this to making a cake, this part is the cake part. The final is kind of adding the frosting. So tonight is kind of a big deal. I don't wish to bore anyone with details on this, so I'm going to allow Mr. Lynn to bore everyone with the details on this. And I think it's appropriate, Mr. Lynn, to present these as if the presentee's in tandem.
Thank you. Is this working? Excellent. Well, as President Hall said, you don't arrive at this evening, for those looking in from outside, by just walking in. This has been a long, long process. This has input, as any land development process does, by the Borough Planning Commission. I see Ken here's from the Planning Commission this evening. Many meetings there, the Borough Engineer, the Borough Solicitor, Jim Jeffrey, the Zoning Officer and Fire Marshal, Jeff Smith, and all of Council. This will actually be the 14th appearance on these two projects between the Community Development Committee, Borough Council, the Planning Commission, and various meetings. So there's 14 opportunities that the elected officials, the volunteers, and the public have had to comment. So it's been a great process. I have with me tonight, just so I introduce some important people, I have actually one of the two applicants as a co-application. I have Jason Duckworth from Arcadia Land here this evening. His colleague, Dave Delaporta, has made 13 of 14 meetings and apologizes, but he is out of town tonight. And David's with Cornerstone Properties. We're also working in conjunction with Bernard, an architectural firm a little bit west of here, and of course also Adam Powell, my lead civil engineers here this evening. This is kind of an exciting project because, as President Hall said, it is in two parts. Part one is the 162-unit apartment building on the south side of the road, and that's entitled the Flats Project. It has 2 levels of parking decks below it, so all the cars are out of sight and not visible. The other project across the street is indeed a combination of 23 newly constructed units, and to me, very exciting, the Briggs Tavern, which is probably one of those historic properties in the Borough media, is being recycled into 2 dwelling units, so that's 2 more. And one half of the twin resident is being purchased on the end of the property and being adjoined as the 26th unit. The other half of the twin is not being purchased, and as Mr. Rose, I believe, was said, he lives immediately behind us in Upper Providence and contiguous to this land. There's a third important component, and because these 2 projects flank Bolivar Pike, there's a series of streetscape improvements that are part of it. Includes all types of amenities from benches to lights to landscaping, and perhaps of equal importance, a new signalized intersection at the intersection of Brook, West State, and Baltimore Avenue. So, providing that all the plans work through with PennDOT, when we believe they will, this will now receive a traffic signal at this intersection for the first time. We all know, having left Brook Street and other places, it's not the easiest intersection, and we believe this is not only going to help cars, but pedestrians as well, because a series of measures are being developed for a traffic neck-down, traffic calming, and a reduction of speed, and pedestrian crossings are being reduced to a much shorter distance at the intersection. So there's a lot of really good pieces to this, and I get excited about once a year about a project. This is one. And even before this project started, there was a really important step. Borough media recognized the western end of town has always been an orphan. Nothing ever happens in the western end of town. And starting in February and March of 2014, there was a whole gateway ordinance initiative with the Division of Borough Council and Planning to decide to give opportunities to this end of town to actually do some improvements. It's always passed over. So this is the first time something's really happened. There's been a tremendous amount of endorsement by council in making that happen. Not only are we working on this, we're also working on a kind of mini fourth component, which is an improvement at the other corner of Brook Street, across the street on the westerly side, so that when you drive up the street, it doesn't suddenly appear to be something and then nothing. So this is an attempt to clean up the entrance to the industrial district and create some interesting images. The vocabulary of the project on the Flats building is an attempt to make it look like an industrial type of adaptive reuse, almost a recycling of something that was industrial in the district. Some pretty interesting architecture, some interesting undulations, articulations, and choice of materials. The project across the street is an attempt to look like part of the old town of Media, which of course was built in little bits and pieces and added on up and down. And this is the front facade on Baltimore Pike with porches and all the elements we like to see in Media Borough. All these follow the Gateway District Ordinance. All these are 100% zoning compliant. So with a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of input by many people in this room, we've arrived at this evening where we were hoping to receive, as President Hall said, a motion for preliminary land development. There are conditions attached to it, as there normally are. Some of them are the engineer's conditions, some of the borough's conditions. Tom Committa, the land planner, was also involved with both the ordinance and this project. Tom has some input in the conditions. And Mr. Scott, as a solicitor, has input from a legal standpoint. So I think when you actually get to the ordinance, you'll see all those components. That's really what I have.
Well, you have a lot.
That's the view of the backside with the public amenities area and the courtyard and the swimming pool, which is actually located on the south side, to give you a flavor of the scale, in this location here on the second deck, above the parking garage, but surrounded by the units. Thank you. Thank you. I have someone helping me with marketing me. It's right here. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So that's basically, I mean, I could talk for 2 more hours, but...
No, we don't need that. A little more than enough is by far much too much. All right, so we have 2 resolutions. And the first resolution is with regard to the West End Flats. That is the apartment development on the south side of West Baltimore Avenue. As Mr. Lynn referenced, we get to this evening after a long process, and many people have input, including our planning commission, and the plan is subject to a number of conditions, and that is routinely done with these developments. So before I call the vote on the first of the 2 resolutions with regard to the flats, I'll turn things over a tiny bit to our solicitor to explain the resolution.
Mr. Lynn touched on a number of the conditions that the applicant comply with the engineer's comments, with our Tom Committer, the borough's planning consultant's comments, that they obtained PennDOT approval, that they obtained Aqua and Little Washington approval both for water service and wastewater removal. Some of the ones that are kind of specific to this project, they are required to put in that traffic signal and pay for it at their expense. There is, if you'll recall, there's some discussion about the applicant having, and the adjacent property owner, the Benongs, having an easement into the borough yard for truck turnaround purposes. And we have not finalized that, so one of the conditions is that they must enter into an agreement with us for that purpose. And the borough's under no obligation to do it because that decision to grant an easement by you is separate from this application. They have no right to it, so we put it in there as a condition. The design of the gateway monuments and whatnot will need to be fleshed out a little bit more because it will require some PennDOT approval, so we're reserving the right to approve the final design of that. We are attaching these facade drawings as exhibits to this, so they can't later say, we've decided we're just going to vinyl side it. What's the last one?
Would you mind addressing the bus shelter issue?
There is, under the ordinance, a requirement for 2 bus shelters due to the size of this one. They are asking for a waiver from that to either, they will provide us with the cost for 2. It requires some consulting with SEPTA as to where they go and whether SEPTA wants them. So that's an issue that'll need to be resolved. They're committing to pay for 2 bus shelters, but where they go, we don't know yet.
But we've agreed to install one at this location if SEPTA agrees to it, so it's only a partial request.
Right.
If we don't get the second, we will donate the funds for wherever location SEPTA and the borough choose, as a clarification.
And then the final point I'd make is we're asking for some street improvements to the west side of Brook Street, which right now is just an entire curb cut, so some street lights and whatnot. But that needs to be worked out as well, and so we're reserving the right to require that to the borough's approval at the final plan stage.
It's area within the public right of way, but since it's adjacent to another business in the borough, we like to have interface dialogue before we just come up with a plan, so that there's a little bit of dialogue that needs to take place still. We've agreed to take care of that improvement time.
I'm not sure what interface dialogue is, but we'll leave that to folks' imagination. The Planning Commission has made a recommendation that we approve the preliminary subdivision and land development with regard to the West End Flats with the conditions that are listed on the resolution. So I'm prepared to make the motion tonight that we approve Resolution 2015-16, which will approve the preliminary subdivision and land development for the flats. And I make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second that motion. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes, I have a question.
I'd like to make a question as well.
Bob, could you clearly tell me how the cost for the traffic area improvements are going to be split between the two developers?
Well, the two developers are working as a team on the flats building. The flats will take the brunt of it because that's basically where the improvements will be. So the flats will take the responsibility for the signalization and the public improvements financially. The other projects below the intersection, but it will benefit from them, but the flats development will take the predominance of the cost.
So how are they deciding how to split that up?
Well, again, the north and south side developers are the same two people. So they are partners in the deal. So it's left pocket or right pocket, but all the improvements will take place.
One of the sheets in the flats plans sets forth, I would say, 90 to 95% of the traffic improvements.
There's a D-mark point.
So that those plans therefore put that burden on the flats developer as opposed to the walk.
It's basically from this point, I'm pointing on the exhibit, just west of Brook Street, moving into median is the flats project, and from that point going towards Middletown Township is the walk project.
So there's a physical demarcation?
There's sort of a line, there's a line in the plan defining which one takes care of which. And as Bob has said, it's about 90-10 because the predominance of them are up in front of the flats building. Between the two, they're all being developed and paid for.
No, I would hate to see there be a disagreement between the two developers.
Well, they're actually partners in the deal, so we
They
won't
can
see
beat each other up.
We'll sell tickets.
What I like is we're not picking up the tab for it.
And yet, this is interesting. This is one of the few times I've had a developer say, I want to put in a traffic signal. I want to put it in. Can you help me make it happen? Which is refreshing to me because I'm dealing with quality players. It's really, really nice to be able to do it. So.
Councilman Davidson?
Well, I had another
Sorry.
question, if you don't want.
Take your turn.
As Mr. Rose brought up, the prior dumps or prior businesses at that property at West End.
It's only, this is on the other side. We're talking about the flats.
Oh, I was kind of thinking of them together, but.
Sure.
I can address it. There was a phase 1 and a phase 2 environmental study done because obviously a developer will not develop a property to bank, will not lend money unless they're clean. They got a completely clean bill of health. I'm the one who actually moved Andre Horn's scuba dive shop across down to the Painter Street section in Upper Providence, actually split between Upper and Media. It's right in the middle of the line. So he was the last occupant there. He had both a machine shop and he had a scuba diving shop. I guess I moved him 7 or 8 years ago now. But they did a phase 1 and a phase 2. And on the record, so I can go for Mr. Rose, is there will be a legitimate structure stopping anybody from crossing between the two property lines in the back of the project in the interest of both parties. So we will commit to that. We already believe we have.
I'm not quite sure what a phase 1 or phase 2 is, but is it a written report of some sort
Yes.
that I can see?
It's an environmental engineer's investigation. Phase 1 is looking at historical records of visible property conditions to see if there's any potential to have to do additional investigation. And phase 2 is where they do borings and soil samples and things like that. And I should have let Mr. Johnson
Wrong Bob.
No, that's okay. The information can be easily supplied because that was a comment that we had that I'll basically say was asked and answered. We had the same concern knowing the history through some of the residents who approached us.
So is that a document that you could send?
I will find it. I do know the borough has it, but if I do, I'll find it. If I have it electronically, I will send it.
It was submitted as part of the process going through it. So Bob all agree to this.
Yeah.
Phase 1 or the phase 2?
But we're only going to send it to you under one condition.
What?
You promise you read it, word for word, page for page.
How many pages are we
They're
talking?
long, they're gory.
Fire up the coffee pot.
Right, exactly.
And as much as you're concerned, we're more concerned than you're concerned because we have to market the property and finance the property. So that's one of the first things people do. We don't want any issues, so that's why the developers always go through that process.
Can I
Any
make
other questions?
one quick?
I just want to point out, that point 6 of both approvals has a Phase 2 NPDES approval as part of it. So it's part of that condition from the home property.
That's a different type of thing.
The NPDES is a National Permit Discharge Elimination System, which deals with stormwater management. That was one of the reasons why we did request a Phase 1, and on there, if they need to go to Phase 2, I'm going to look. I believe that one of the potential basins could be located in an area where they had some prior
So
work.
that's different, what I'm saying is different than what
Yes.
Correct.
we just
It is
discussed, which
different.
is the toxic
Correct.
screenings.
Once we disturb more than an acre of land, we have to get what's basically a soil conservation district permit in conjunction with this for stormwater discharge to make sure we're following best management practices, volume reduction,
Okay,
flow,
gotcha.
water quality.
And so they passed both Phase 1 and Phase 2 for both properties, what you're saying?
Well, there's, in a sense that you don't pass, they perform certain required tasks that are, there's a list. If they find issues, then they continue on to some type of remediation. They went to Phase 1, I don't recall if they did a Phase 2, but I do recall that everything was satisfied.
But I think what you're asking
My
about
question is,
what an NPDES
is it codified in
is.
the subdivision, that what we're granting today, that this will be done?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know. But actually, so that answers your question. My question is regarding some of the neighbors and some of the issues, obviously the Benhams. I know there's some early issues early this week with the turnaround and the plans for that. My question is, Bob, the condition we put in there, which gives you final approval for that easement on our property, will that allow us to ensure that, in the first case, in the flats of the Benhams and the property developers will have
Yeah, well,
an agreement in place?
I went a little further with, I added a sentence, thank you, that in a subsequent draft, where it's not just to the satisfaction of the solicitor, I added the sentence. The borough should be under no obligation.
Which item is this number?
Number 8.
Number 8,
Thank you.
flats. Last sentence, the borough shall be under no obligation to enter into such an easement agreement. So that's reserving to council with full discretion to.
So we would have to then approve that by motion in a future meeting in order to get this to final. Is that correct? Great.
And just so you know, we haven't done it in a vacuum. Adam and I met as recently as
I
last
believe
week
it.
with the Benhams and Ralph, the highway master, and Jeff, and Bob, and we've been down on the site a couple of times looking at what works for all parties concerned. So there's been a lot of good dialogue with the time.
Okay, so that's my only question. The flats on the walks, obviously, Mr. Rose came in and asked to put a fence in. Could we have a condition that just indicates that they will put a privacy fence in, bordering them on 4 West End Avenue?
Yeah, we offered a legitimate barrier for passage, yeah. We'll make sure we take care of it. The difference between elevation, we were hearing earlier tonight, it's about 1.25 feet between the two properties, so it's not a large change because we have topography, but yeah, we'll take care of it.
No, I just want to put it in the preliminary approval. That way, since you just agreed to it, is that correct?
The first motion we're taking is with regard to the flat, so why don't we take that motion, and then with regard to the
I'll
flat,
make
Mr.
the
Little had
second
the
motion.
opportunity to speak with his client and see whether or not he has any concerns about the fencing issue.
Okay.
All right, motion made and seconded. Is there any other further discussion? Wait for the 5-second rule. All those in favor of passing resolution 2015-16 for preliminary subdivision land development application for West End Flats, 422-438 West Baltimore Avenue, please say aye.
Aye.
Any of those opposed? Ayes have it.
All right, Mr. Delaporte, wherever you are. And now Mr. Duckworth is on the hot seat. So, similar motion, although the names change and the number of the resolution changes. Same deal. It's a preliminary subdivision land development application. The Planning Commission has met extensively about this, and they recommend that the borough approve the application, subject to conditions which are set forth in Resolution 2015-17. Mr. Scott, would you mind please summarizing the conditions of the resolution?
This one's a slightly less intensive because it's a little smaller, not as complicated project. It has the same conditions regarding engineers' comments, planners' comments, water service, sewer service, and PennDOT approval. The ones that are particular to this, the materials for the plaza area still need to be finalized, so that we're reserving judgment on that to the final plan process. There is currently in this one a condition that I think should be removed because there was some confusion about it. It is to provide a SEPTA bus stop shelter. The ordinance does not require it for this project. It doesn't meet the kind of the number of units to trigger that. And the other resolution where they've already committed to put in one and pay for another covers us. So I would propose to strike that number 22 because it ended up there as a result of misunderstanding. And that's about it.
All right, thank you for the summary. I will make a motion that we approve Resolution 2015-17 with regard to West End Walk, approving the resolution with the amendment that we strike condition number 22 with regard to providing a SEPTA bus stop shelter.
And if there's interest in this fence condition, you could replace provide a SEPTA bus stop shelter with provide a boundary fence.
Mr. Webb, you have the opportunity to speak with your client.
My client, by his head going vertically, acknowledges acceptance.
All right, so let's substitute the fence for the shelter on that number 22. So the applicant will be required to put in some type of fencing, provide some type of privacy between the properties, and it would not be required to provide a SEPTA bus stop shelter. Sorry.
Bob, you want to just give us some sample language there for that?
And sample language is provide a rear boundary fence.
Can we specify the property?
Well, the property is the Walks property. The Walks property. There's that rear property line is where I understand. Is it the full?
So you put a privacy fencing around the entire back of the property?
Well,
I didn't think that's what you agreed to.
Good evening, I'm Jason Duckworth. What I would like to do is to address Mr. Rose's concern about the section of our property line which adjoins his, and we would do some kind of boundary fence along that to demarcate his property.
So I see. So you're saying it should be the
Install
reference to
a
Mr.
privacy
Rose's.
fence
The reference is to Mr.
abutting
Rose's.
for West End.
Well, I want to actually use the term boundary fence and not privacy fence. I think from the very beginning, one of the great virtues of this property is its adjacency to the mature woodlands. And I think you'll note on this plan that Mr. Rose's property has a long, narrow, triangular section through which one could see the mature trees at the Glen Providence Park. So a privacy fence generally connotes something different than a fence that is meant to demarcate a property boundary. So I'm very happy to mark a property boundary. Let's not have to do trespassing, but I want to have these future homeowners to be able to fully enjoy the views of this magnificent woodland.
So what is Mr. Rose's property address? 4 West?
4 West.
4 West Ave.
Could it be like a privacy about halfway down?
Alongside your home, sure.
Yeah.
Right. In this section near your home, absolutely.
Yeah, where that turnaround's gonna be?
Yeah, that's fine.
Getting more and more complicated.
Sure is.
We will take care of it appropriately and we'll have sure. As it always does by representative.
Mr. Scott, are you comfortable in writing that as a condition?
So to provide a rear boundary fence along the 4 West End property boundary. Privacy fence, the portion, I'm not clear where this portion is going to be privacy.
Approximately half.
In between
Near the turnaround.
Near the,
That's legal terminology, isn't it? Near the turnaround?
near the,
Well, if you use Latin, it'll sound legal.
It's approximately 100 linear feet. Okay?
but the privacy fence.
Yes, 100 linear feet. Covers the turnaround and that.
Thank you.
All right, so
if you think I'm repeating all this.
I think the motion is what he said. So I'll make the motion that we approve Resolution 2015-17 with regard to the preliminary subdivision and land development application for West End Walk, with all conditions except for condition number 22, which at present requires a septic bus stop shelter. That is going to be removed from the resolution and instead will be replaced by a condition with regard to a boundary/privacy fence.
Second motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? I would like to say that it is very pleasant to have a developer come in that recognizes what a great town media is and is very, very willing to work with us. And I think this is going to turn out to be, an excellent project. And I really want to, very often developers come in and it's like, I want this, I want that, can you give me this, can you give me that? And it's almost the opposite here. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great project, and it is going to change the southern part of the town and the western part of the town. But I think everyone's going to be very excited with it. So I will make, there are motions made. Second, is there any other further discussion? With all the amendments that Council President made, Solicitor Scott made, Jason made, Bob Lynn made, Bob Johnson made, just so I have everyone on here for the record, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, you've worked long and hard. This is a game changer for that part of town. I think everybody's going to be really pleased. This could be 5% of the borough's population in the center of town, which supports shops and restaurants and everything else, and within walking distance, I might add. So it's a great application, great project for the borough. Thanks.
I think that so long as we're thanking folks, we should thank the members of the Planning Commission. Upton is here tonight. He was one who asked a number of very good questions that were well taken that helped to make changes to the project for the better. The borough professional staff, consultants, members of council. I think that you're right, Mr. Leonard. This has the potential for a transformative effect on the west end of town.
First time ever.
For the first time ever. This is a part of town that I've said before needs attention. It's getting that attention. I'm very pleased that it's getting attention from folks who share, recognize and appreciate the value, the shared values that we have as a community. It's a walking community, and this is a project that will capitalize on that. It will actually, I think, increase the walkability of that part of town. So we're very pleased that this is, we hope, to come, because this is just the cake. There still is some frosting, and we have to approve the frosting too before this happens. But tonight was a big first.
And I appreciate the unanimous vote on the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm just going to leave this on and interrupt the meeting. We'll get tomorrow.
Okay, so that's all I have for legislative tonight. Just a couple of announcements. I'll take this one on. This coming Monday and Tuesday, they're going to be doing work on the trolley tracks here in Media from Providence Road on down to Orange. So the whole extent of it, they're replacing the wires. So be patient. There will be septic trucks up and down the street those 2 days. They're removing wires. They will not take up any of the parking spaces, but you might have to skirt around them a little bit in order to avoid what they're doing. At times, they might be in the intersection and might delay your travel, but recognize that this is for the better good of the community. So Monday and Tuesday, pretty much all day. Jeff, is there a rain date? No rain date. Okay, rain or shine. Also, I'll turn to the borough manager. If you can give something of an update on what's been going on over at 5 Points. There has been work there that for some has been something of an inconvenience, but it's better that we have inconvenience now during the summertime than we do once things start heating up or cooling down weather-wise come September.
Yes, PICO's doing some gas main replacement work. According to the PICO Government Relations Department, they will be finished the work on September the 11th, Friday, September 11th, at which time they'll be moving out, and the roads in that area will be opened up 24/7. So that's where we are right now with that.
Okay, so bear with the work for the next several weeks. This too will pass, and we hope it is for the better of the community. So we will put up with it until then. Otherwise, I don't have anything else other than to commend our Borough Secretary, the Administrative Secretary Joanne Tippin, for another bang-up job of meeting minutes. And every now and then you see something that just kind of gets your go a little bit, you chuckle a little bit. And this was with regard to the meeting minutes for the comprehensive plan. I'm going to read them because I know you chuckled when you wrote this. So you wrote that President Hall welcomed public comment, and then immediately after that public comment privilege of the floor, you wrote, there was none. And then just like, I got a hoot out of that because you could say none, zero, there was none. And that's exactly how it felt at that moment, there was none. So thanks for brightening my day a little bit. That's all I got.
Any questions for Council President? Gal, back to you.
All right, Finance, Technology, Library, EAC, Mr. Davis.
Thanks, Ryan. First up on my agenda is payment of bills for the month of July. The Finance Committee recommends payment of all bills for July in the following amounts. From the General Fund, $368,364.13. For the Recreation Fund, $5,058.01. From the Liquid Fuels Fund, $2,035. From the Capital Fund, $40,797.21 for a grand total of $416,254.35. I make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question on what I refer to as the deadbeat motion, because if we don't pass it, we're not paying our bills. So all those in favor of payment of the bills as outlined by Councilman Davidson with regard to expenditures for the General Fund, the Recreation Fund, Liquid Fuels Fund, and the Capital Fund, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes.
Next up, every August, we do what's called a mid-year budget update, where we look at our budget that we passed last December and adjust some numbers based on things that have been happening during the year, so that we have a balanced budget. So council has been presented with a balanced budget. We met in finance on Tuesday this week and made some minor changes to the adjustments, which I believe the manager has forwarded to all of council. So I will make a motion at this point that we approve Resolution 2015-18, the mid-year budget update.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no call for discussion, I will call the question. All those who favor adopting Resolution 2015-18 with regard to the mid-year budget update, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes.
Thanks. That concludes my legislative actions. Just in terms of news, library, I think Maria Shiketa gave a pretty good update of what's going on with the library, so I don't need to do that. Environmental Advisory Council did not meet this month, so there's no news there. And Technology Council will be meeting in the next 3 weeks, so at this point, I have nothing else to report.
All right, any questions for Councilman Davidson? Hearing none, Fair Trade, Farmers Market, and Shade Tree, Councilwoman Amy Johnson.
Thank you. I have a quick report. Both Shade Tree and Fair Trade, no meetings this month. Just a quick reminder, the Media Farmers Market continues to run every Thursday from 3 to 7 on the corner of State and Gailey. The market runs all the way through November, so there's still plenty of time to visit, where you can shop an array of homegrown, handmade, and local products. The library has been hosting a table each week with kids' crafts, and there's always live music, and for a complete list of vendors, you can visit the website, or you can also sign up for the weekly newsletter. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilman Amy Johnson? Hearing none, we'll move on to Public Relations and Historical Archives, which is Councilwoman Sarah Dixon.
So, the historical archives are off for August, so no meeting. Yes, sorry, I've got the mic on.
Be a little closer.
With my big voice, you mean, okay. The Media Borough has been recognized as a great place in Pennsylvania neighborhoods, and I'm asking that the mayor accept the presentation for us.
Yeah,
My name is Justin Dula. I'm with the Delaware County Planning Department, and I'm here on behalf of the American Planning Association Pennsylvania chapter. And it's my honor to present the borough with the award for the Great Places in Pennsylvania Great Neighborhoods Award. The Great Places in Pennsylvania program recognizes Pennsylvania great, memorable, and unique neighborhoods and public spaces throughout the state. The Great Places have a sustained vision for the future and serve as a model for other communities. Media is the first area in Delaware County to win this award, and no place could be more deserving as someone who works here and spends a lot of time here. A great neighborhood is a thriving mixed-use area that showcases historic and cultural diversity, fosters economic opportunity, promotes community involvement, and demonstrates connectivity. It is a hub of activity for residents and visitors, and through implementation of the borough's comprehensive plan and downtown media strategy, the borough has become a pedestrian-friendly, diverse, and vibrant town with a strong sense of community. The judges specifically noted media's diverse population, good social interaction, stable mixed-use community, and the emphasis borough showed in implementing the comprehensive plan and downtown strategy. All of the designated great places demonstrate the rewarding results occurring through community partnerships, planning, and dedication, specifically done by community leaders and officials, professionals, and residents who contribute. As part of the program, the borough is receiving stickers that can be put in borough offices, but also businesses. There's a small group of them here, but then also you can contact me over at the Government Center if you need any more for any of the businesses. And you can look for them around town as another sign of the borough's success. And then for all of these reasons, it's my honor.
Wow, turnabout is fair play. This is great.
To provide to the borough to commemorate media as a great place in Pennsylvania.
All right.
I get to make a comment?
You do.
All right, this will be less than 10 minutes. It's awards like this that make the town, the council, everybody proud of all the work that you do. Something like what Bob Lynn presented tonight, you know, the West End Flats and all. Everything goes into making this a special town. So we feel like a special town, and this, above all, is one of the nicest awards I think I've seen in my 30-plus years. So thank you very much. We're very proud of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, council, for all the work that you do, and I just love tagging along.
And thank you very much.
Yes.
And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for Councilwoman Dixon?
You can come back next month because you're going to get an award for sitting through the whole council.
I take it that there are no comments or questions for Councilwoman Dixon, so we'll move on to public comment and privilege of the floor. If there's anyone who wishes to address council at this time, please come forward to the microphone. Identify yourself by name and where you live. Sure. You're making the most of your opportunity.
Yeah, well, I don't get to comment.
You can always call us too.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm a taxpayer in media too, I own other real estate. But as far as phase one goes, and back to the West End Walk, they're supposed to, and I believe they're supposed to interview surrounding neighbors, and they never did interview me, which, yeah.
Let me respond back. There is a checklist that has been done, and they're required by law to follow. I don't believe it's part of it. A lot of it is mostly library work and not a lot of interview work. So, but I will produce, I did, that's why I stopped out to ask Adam Powell from Bob Lynn's office to send me electronic copies. I'll forward them to Mr. Smith and he can make them available to all council members. But my recollection is all library.
And that's public information.
Yeah,
So you may request that, and Mr. Smith is our right-to-know officer, and will provide you with a copy.
Right, I just think it might be a function of where you do your test boring as to what kind of samples you're going to come back with. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address council at this time? No one else is a taker. Before we sign off tonight, just a reminder to everyone that although we are deep in the middle of summer, we can see the other end of the tunnel, and soon will be September. So when you see those big yellow things on the street, they're school buses. Slow down. They'll be out there soon enough. Kids will be back to school, so be careful out there. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good night, folks.
Thank you.